time this morning. Oh, there we go. The AI has spoken. We're now recording. Um, so first of all, thanks everyone for sparing the time this morning. Um, so I'm Vikas, and I'm here as one of the deputy lieutenants of Greater Manchester. So it's a bit of an odd role. So if you don't know what the lieutenancy does, years ago, so 1545, Henry VIII sort of wasn't exactly, you know, one of the most liked people, and he decided to create a mechanism to summon militias around the country, and that mechanism was the lieutenancy. So every county got a Lord Lieutenant, and the Lord Lieutenant's job was basically to stand in for the king in the battlefield and also summon militias and run the laws. Um, Luckily, all of the actual summoning of militias and wartime aspects of the role have gone, and now the lieutenancy really is there to represent the crown in different parts of the country. So we have a Lord Lieutenant, Diane, who's a Lord Lieutenant of Greater Manchester, and the Lord Lieutenant has a number of deputies. So I'm one of the deputies for Greater Manchester. So we cover, sort of just almost 2.8 million people in the boundary. And the role of the lieutenancy is everything from the honours system, so the OBE, CBEs, MBEs that you see, the King's Awards Voluntary Service, and what we're talking about today, which is the King's Awards for Enterprise. So the awards were created in 1965 by the King and the Duke of Edinburgh, and obviously now have been adopted in the name of His Majesty King Charles. And the aim really was simple, which is the UK has some extraordinary businesses of all shapes and sizes, and this was a great way to celebrate, the very, very best businesses in the UK. So since the awards started all those years ago, there's been about 7,000 winners of the King's Awards for Enterprise since then. And they are very much ranked as being the most prestigious award for businesses in the UK. There's four key categories, which I'm going to talk to you about in a bit more detail in a moment. So there's innovation, there's international trade, sustainable development, and also promoting opportunity through social mobility. And one thing to always keep in mind is it's not necessarily the obvious category for your business, which is the right one to apply for. So I've got a couple of examples which I'll talk to you about. Um, there we go. Um, so just wait for our latest attendees to join. Hi. So let me just quickly talk through those categories again, because I know there's people just joined. So for the King's Awards for Enterprise, the categories are innovation, international trade, sustainable development, and promoting opportunity through social mobility. And like I said, it's not necessarily the obvious category, which is the right one. One of the most common myths about the King's Awards is that it's only for big businesses. And the reason is typically when you see that King's Awards logo, it's on a co-op van or some great big business. But just to give you some examples from this most recent year's winners, so for the 2025 awardees, 91% of them were SMEs. So I picked out the three smallest ones from this year. So the three smallest winners from this year: Cabin Zero in Chester, a travel company, had 2 employees. Another company called Naked Sprout that makes sustainable tissue paper had 3.7 employees. In Garstang in Lancashire, a business called Cheese Matters, who export fine British cheeses, have 4 employees. And compare that against our 3 biggest winners this past year. Pentland Group, which is a big sporting brands company, 55,000 employees. The Southern Health NHS Trust, 8,000 employees. And Turner Townsend, who are a big professional services business, who had 6,300. Quite unlike any other awards, all winners are basically held in the same level, right? So you could be an SME with 2 employees, and in your category, there could be, co-op group who win the same award. But in the eyes of the awards, you're equal. And that's such a wonderful place to be for any business. And if you're lucky enough to win, it's actually, you do get quite a lot for it, actually. So you get use of the royal emblem for 5 years, which is the King's Awards for Enterprise symbol. It's very much seen as a royal seal, and it helps businesses get noticed way above the competition in all categories. It's very much a boost to staff morale and retention. On the day your awards announced, you'll get a letter from the Lord Lieutenant, where they'll arrange a time to come and see you to give you your award. Lots of businesses do, make a day of it, and it's a great thing for press as well. There's lots of really positive media coverage that comes from it. Also, to give you an example, when you see in the papers that there's international delegations coming to the UK or big, prominent visits happening of businesses, the businesses that are chosen are usually King's Awards winners because the processes we'll come to is quite detailed, and so those businesses are seen to be quite quality assured. Um, the all winners also get to attend a reception at the palace, so either at Buckingham or Windsor, hosted by His Majesty the King, and that's just for the winners. And each winner gets to take a guest, and it's a really beautiful, intimate celebration. Chance to meet all the other winners, but also a chance to really celebrate that achievement. The the Cabinet Office actually did a survey of winners over the last decade, and what they found is that the majority of winners, and more than 80% of all winners, said that the award helped them increase sales growth, access new clients and markets, get greater recognition. It increased trust, credibility, and sort of stickiness in their brand. And also, particularly in some of the international trade categories, over 90% of respondents said it was absolutely instrumental for them winning sales contracts and growing their business. And again, unlike any other awards, even if you're unsuccessful with the awards, the assessors actually give you a really, really big, detailed feedback kit. And that feedback kit, it's effectively like having a bunch of really, really top business consultants pouring over your business and giving you just fantastic feedback. So even people who haven't won the awards have said that feedback packs help them then win more business, write better tenders, write better bids. It's really, really useful. So what I'll do now is I'm going to talk through each of the awards categories, a bit about the criteria for those awards, and then I'll talk about the application process. And then what I'd love to do then is open it out, take any questions from you about your businesses and if you're applying. So the first one's innovation. It's the most competitive of all the awards categories in terms of number of entrants. So to apply for the award, you need to have an innovation that hasn't been sold before. It has to have been available in the market for at least 2 years. You should have been able to show that you are recovering or have recovered the investment you've made, and also show some evidence of commercial success. Innovation isn't what you think from an awards perspective, because typically people think, oh, it has to be some kind of molecule or software. It isn't. It could be product design. It could be product service innovation. It could be you've made something perform better. It could be a marketing innovation. It could be the way that you support your customers. So I mentioned one of our winners was the Southern NHS Health Trust. They won an innovation award for developing a really, really unique way of working with elderly people in their NHS trust using technology, and it was really fantastic. And it's not a molecule or software; it's just an innovative way of working with people that showed an impact. What the judges will be looking for is, why did this innovation come about? What are the kind of challenges that you've had to overcome? Why is it unique, and how does it benefit people? The challenges bit is really important, right? Because each applicant is assessed on their own merit. So you're not assessed against the other applicants. So let's say in the innovation category this year, let's say, Liv, you're on my screen. So let's say Liv had this amazing innovation for her business. And let's say AstraZeneca also happened to cure cancer that year, and that's in the same category. What the judges evaluate is the likelihood that your business would have been able to do it. So it's very likely that a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceuticals company will develop a new pharmaceutical. So how innovative was it for them to do that, and why? But then one of our previous winners was a very small shoes business from Bolton, who developed a really innovative 3D printing tool to do shoe formers to make their production way more efficient. It was pretty alien for a tiny business to do that, and so the judges pick them. It's so you're evaluated against you and your business. The other thing to remember is, actually, because we do get asked this quite a bit, all businesses suffered during the COVID years, and so when you're submitting your information, don't worry about that. The judges take that into account. The next category is international trade. International trade is there to recognize businesses who have substantial overseas growth with earnings and commercial success. So minimum £100,000 in overseas sales. You've got to show year on year growth. You've got to show that growth relative to your sector. So how unique is it for a business like yours to grow internationally? Um, you've got to then be able to demonstrate why it was an achievement to do that. You know, were you the first? Were you the fastest? Did you go into markets that were harder to get into? Why is your performance better than your competitors? What were some of the challenges that you overcame? So I'll give you an example. After Brexit, for example, there was quite a few businesses where actually what they demonstrated was because they were no longer sure about accessing Europe, they went and opened some pretty difficult markets. So there was a small marketing agency that started to provide services into Middle East and North Africa. Very difficult markets to open afresh, very difficult markets to operate in. Small business, it would have been unusual for them to do that. And they won an award on the basis of that. It's a great category. Also, just as a quick note, when you win the award, the logo doesn't have your category underneath. You are just a King's Awards winner. So don't get kind of category envy where you're like, we're an innovation business. We want to win an innovation award because it might not be the right one. Sustainable development is one of the new categories, and that's to provide the businesses that provide sustainable products, services, or interventions and can provide evidence of the benefits of those interventions and outcomes of those interventions, right? So this could be sustainability in terms of your vision and strategy. You know, are you setting an absolute precedent on how you source, how you supply, you know, where you blacklist source and supply from, you know, really big governance things? Have you developed some interesting new innovative product? Are you doing better economic sustainability through impact measurement? You know, it's a really broad reach. So winners in this category have been everything from that two-person holidays company I mentioned, who only sell sustainable holidays, meaning if you want to go on a holiday to Florida, that's fine. They'll still give you a value for money holiday, but they will specifically choose eco-friendly airlines and destinations. So that's one route. Another winner called Duo Packaging in Stockport recycle plastic bottles and turn them into mailing bags for fast fashion. So you know, it's anything that can be seen as an innovation. So the judges will be wanting to know, you know, are you setting a benchmark in your sector? You know, are you maybe aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Are you reducing greenhouse gas emissions or working towards net zero? Are you leading in your sector? Sometimes our winners themselves, what they've done is they've said, actually, this is really important for our sector. We are going to lead this initiative. We're going to make a difference for other businesses in our sector. That's also a really powerful way to demonstrate what you're doing. Um, the interesting thing for me is sustainable development and the next category, social mobility, are two where the Northwest does really well. Lots of businesses in the region do this anyway and don't realize how important and actually how unique that is. Promoting opportunity through social mobility is a really interesting category because this is for employers where their work providing high quality social mobility initiatives and programs that reach out and support people from disadvantaged backgrounds to inspire and guide talent into their organization. So this could be, for example, maybe you're going into the community and providing education and training to bring people into your business. Maybe you've got specific outreach programs that are helping people. Maybe you're running, you know, training programs and really helping people to achieve career success in whatever they're doing. A lot of winners in this category are actually social enterprises as well, which is interesting. But I'll give you an example. There was a business that I went to see last year. They really, really wanted to go for international trade because they are exporting their goods into various markets, and that was great. But when I dug into a bit about what they were doing, I found out that actually one of their initiatives to get warehouse and logistics staff is every week they go into schools and colleges around where they are in Oldham. They just go and talk to people and say, hey, you know, we're down the road. This is a really great career for you. Don't worry if you can't drive, we'll train you. Don't worry if you've never worked in a warehouse, just come and see what you think. There's careers in logistics, you can work up to management. People come in, they get open days, they get training. And I said, so why'd you do that? And they said, well, A, we're not going to find staff otherwise, but B, we probably should do it because it's our community. And you know, they ended up winning this social mobility award because it was really remarkable the work they're doing. The reason for mentioning that one is that's really typical of businesses in the Northwest. They'll do a lot of this work because they just feel, well, we probably should. And they don't realize just how unique that is as something to do for business. So, in terms of eligibility, then, the awards are completely free to enter. So, so you'll probably see lots of sharks out there that are saying, hey, we can help you with an award or whatever. But, they are free to enter. Um, the only cost that you might incur for if there's any gaps in your financials, the assessors might request a letter of comfort from your accountants or something, which is in the low hundreds of pounds, but it's only if there's really a gap or a reason to. Um, as a business, you might want to use a freelance copywriter or a marketing person to help you craft your entry, which is totally fine. All entries are done via a portal now. So you register on the portal. It's open now. I'll share the links with you all. When you register, you can create multiple users for your business. So oftentimes you'll have different people collaborating on it and reading your entry and tailoring it. So it's a really good collaborative online process. So the actual application window opened on the 6th of May and it closes on the 12th of September. So you've got plenty of time, a good couple of months. You have to be a self-contained enterprise. So if you're a subsidiary, so if you're, let's say, a UK subsidiary of an American company, for example, that's okay as long as you're independent and you've got your own decision making. You've got to have a good compliance record with HMRC. Sometimes this trips businesses up because they said, oh, no, we had a payroll inspection or we had a VAT inspection or something. Don't worry about that. That's normal business as usual HMRC interactions. When they say have a good compliance record, what they mean is that your business is not currently under investigation for tax fraud and that you're not currently in some kind of legal dispute with HMRC. So don't worry about the business day-to-day inquiries and things you might get. You have to have at least 2 full-time employees or part-time equivalents. So to illustrate that in practice, one of our smallest ever winners was a cafe in Bristol, and they won a social mobility award because what they were doing is they had a cafe owner who was employee number 1, and then the rest of their employee base was 4.25 FTE. And that formed the second employee. And what she was doing was giving local people from the refugee community a chance to work in the cafe, build their skills, and learn hospitality industry and be part of the community. And so that's how she got 2 employees. Because King Charles is very much into the environment, every category now they'll ask you questions about your environmental, social, governance practices. Don't worry too much about this. This can be as basic as, well, we switched our cars to electric, or we're using LED bulbs. It just demonstrates that it's something that you think about, right? So the timeline, like I said, 6th of May, awards open. So 12th of September, application period closes. And then after that, there's a sift. So the judging panels themselves is completely apolitical. The only reason you'll hear me mention things like cabinet office is because the government pay for this, but it's all done independently, and the assessors are recruited independently. They sign a civil service confidentiality code. All the assessors are made up of very, very experienced people in industry. So when you're applying, don't worry about commercial confidentiality. It's very, very secure and protected from that perspective. So by end of October, if you've made it through the sift and you're shortlisted, you'll be told. But you'll also be told if you haven't, right? So there's no waiting around and figuring either way. You'll be told either way, have I been shortlisted? Once you've been shortlisted, it then goes to the assessors. And so the assessors will start to maybe email you with some questions saying, can you talk to us more about this? Can you tell us more about that? On a rare occasion, they might say, hey, can we do a call with you and just do maybe a panel just to ask you some questions about your entry? So those assessment panels will run from November. And then by the end of March, if you've been successful, you'll be told, and you'll get a really, really beautiful letter and pack through telling you how wonderful you are, giving you the details of how to, register for your palace event and so on and so on. And then within a few weeks of that, all the unsuccessful applicants will be notified and you'll get your feedback kit. Even if you've been unsuccessful, you can go again next year. Nothing to stop you doing that. And then in May, all the successful entries are notified in the official Gazette, which is a really wonderful thing. You can print that out. It's a really great thing to have. And then in summer, usually, June, July, you have the royal reception at the palace for your business. And like I said, the main thing for me is on the King's Awards website, there's really detailed application criteria for each award. There's also now, from this year, there's a new eligibility tool because a lot of people just don't know if they can or they should. And so there's a really, really useful tool now where you can, it's literally a 10-minute questionnaire. You can fill it in and it'll tell you the baseline, are you eligible? The other thing to remember is there's a lot of support in Greater Manchester for these awards. So the Growth Company have been absolutely fantastic doing seminars like this, but the Growth Company team are there to support you as well, because it might be that you need some marketing help. It might be that you need some help writing things. It might be that you want some help trying to assess different aspects of your business. Growth Company are right there for you. Through the Greater Manchester Lieutenancy as well, we've got a whole bunch of previous winners who have said that they are really, really happy to act informally as mentors for free as well. So if you're applying and you get stuck and there's something you want checked over, or if you want to get a second opinion, just reach out and we can connect you to one of our previous winners to have a look at your entry, to think about what might help, what you might want to start thinking about in terms of your application criteria. One of the most common bits of feedback that they actually give is don't use press releases and don't use just general awards as evidence. All the evidence you supply should be really good, solid. We did this and it achieved that. We did this because it was difficult and we achieved that. So winning a local business award or a press release that got into a local magazine, or things like that don't necessarily contribute. And like I said, if in doubt, ask. I know Joe's asked in the chat, is there anybody specific at the Growth Company to reach out to for support? I know Sasha from the Business Growth Hub's on the call. So what I'll make sure is after the call today, I'll send a little information pack with a bit more information to Sasha. So she can circulate that to everybody. I'll put my contact details on there as well. And I'm sure Sasha will be happy to add contact details from who the right person at the Business Growth Hub and the Growth Company would be to ask as well. But from the really important message that the whole of the King's Awards team are trying to get across as well is the Northwest underperforms. For some reason, we have some of the most innovative, responsible, fast-growing, interesting businesses in the entire country. But year on year, the level of applications we get from the region really underperforms elsewhere. So we're trying to really push that outreach. So even if you're looking at the awards and thinking, maybe it's not for me, please be an advocate. Share it with other businesses that you know. Share it with your friends. Just say, hey, maybe it's something that you should consider, because we want to get more winners from the region. So that's the kind of main awards overview. And I'm really happy to open it out to any questions you might have. If you're thinking of applying for the awards, we can have a chat with you now about any ideas that you might have. Let me just check the chat as well. So we've covered the question about specific contacts. The other thing to mention as well is the King's Award team now have a proper helpline, which they never did before. So on the King's Awards website, you'll see there's actually a phone number for the King's Awards team. And with that phone number, if there's any questions that you have as you're doing your application, they're really, really happy to help, because sometimes it's really common that you might see a question and think, don't quite know, do we qualify for that? How do I approach that? What should I do about that? They're really, really good. They're a really, really good team, and they're really happy to help. And I know lots of our previous entrants have found that helpline really useful as well, because it can just guide you through some of the trickier aspects of the application. To give you an idea, if you've ever had to fill in a detailed bid or a tender, that's probably about the level of work that you'd need to put in for the application. And so now that it's all done online, you can start start the process and just do it in dribs and drabs as we then get to the September deadline. Are there any sort of other questions or comments, or anyone thinking of going for the award this year?
I do have a question.
Go on. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Because obviously we've met before. And I've started going through the process and looking at all the questions. And I remembered you saying about the assessors are from lots of different
Yeah.
industries. And it's something I always struggle with when going to parties is when someone goes, "What do you do?" And the not understanding when we use our normal language that people in our sectors and in
Yeah.
just go, yeah, I get that. And a lot of people who don't work in those sectors will be like, I've no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's trying to, I'm struggling. I've answered loads of the other questions already, but the one way, describe your business.
Yeah.
The first one, I'm like,
So how would you describe your business?
well, I say it's supply chain management,
Yeah.
cradle to grave of a project, and we cover quality delivery
Yeah.
and ESG goals. But a lot of people go, I don't know what supply chain management
Yeah.
means.
So what my advice would be, first of all, don't worry about being somewhat technical, because a lot of businesses are, and in general, if the reviewers are unsure, they will ask. So you're not, it's not like a lot of awards where you just go into the void and never hear back, and if they don't understand it, they just put it in the shredder. If you in almost all cases, if there's something they don't understand, they'll ask you. One thing that I always recommend as well is, if you're unsure, get a day of a marketing freelancer's time to read over it. That's a really good investment with these awards, because particularly in that situation. So even in, so my previous business was in commodities trading, and the way that I would talk about the business would have an implied level of understanding about the industry that we were in. So when we applied for any kind of awards or things like this, I just got a marketing freelancer to go, can you just read this and make it, tweak it and just see, is it plain English enough? Do you think it would read well? And it's actually a really good investment to do that. Each category, though, the assessors will be, whilst they're not going to be kind of specific domain experts, they will be drawn from those allied disciplines. So if we look at innovation, the assessors, the actual assessors and judges will be, a mixture of entrepreneurs, academics, really high level people. It's a paid role for them as advisors. So they, you know, they are drawn from really senior positions. But genuinely, I think sometimes if you're unsure, there's so many amazing marketing freelancers about who I know this is kind of bread and butter, what they're really good at as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
Hi, yeah,
Hi,
I've just
Jenny.
got a quick question. Hi. Because I work for the public sector, the
Yeah.
prison service, we've already been trying to be as innovative as we possibly can. We managed to get a donation for a bus, so we're getting a second one. However, when we've got this information from First Post and they want to put the press release out because it helps them as well as us publicising us,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they will not allow the press release to go ahead due to public perception.
Yeah.
When I was looking at this, and when you mentioned about, media coverage, I was thinking, we've got to be very, very
Yeah.
careful. And
Yeah. So that is optional, by the way. So when you
is
do, yeah. So when you do your application, you're asked specifically, can we inform the lieutenancy about your application? And you don't have to be included in any press coverage or media coverage or anything. Of the 100 and something winners, lots of those businesses just got the award, communicated it where they wanted to, and that's great.
Yeah.
But then for other businesses, they were like, yeah, great, shout as much as you want. So, because obviously there's certain industries like defense, for example, where they might not want to. There's also, for example, that the winner that I mentioned to you, which was the NHS Trust, there was also an extent to which for them, and they won't mind me saying, but there was a perception issue where they were like, well, should we have had to develop this ourselves? Should this not be something that's done through what was NHS England? And in the end, they said, well, actually, no. It showcases what you can do in their situation if they collaborate with the tech community. Yeah. But there's absolutely no obligation to engage in any wider press coverage beyond what you want to.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be stopped, but I think it depends on the timings, what's going on in the media at the thing, what the public perception is already, to whether we can put a press release out.
Oh, totally. And I that part of it is very much an optional. The secretariat are always really keen to showcase businesses because naturally, it's great to shout about businesses that are doing well and doing things innovatively. But ultimately, that's at the discretion of the business if they want to participate in any organized press. And if you don't, it's totally fine. There's absolutely no obligation to do so.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
No worries. Any more questions whilst we have you all? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll send, because we've got an updated sort of application and information pack, just which is a bit of a helpful support for application. So I'll send that all across to the Growth Hub so they can circulate it to everyone that's obviously shared their contact details to join the call today. Like I said, I'll put my contact details on there. I can connect you with any of our King's Awards team in Greater Manchester, the previous winners. And like I said, please, you've got bags of time to do it. And my advice would be, even if you're not quite sure, I'd apply anyway, only because even if you don't quite feel like you hit the criteria, the feedback you get is so fantastic. It's genuinely like having, like I said, a bunch of top consultants poring over what you're doing and giving you, really good, solid, honest feedback. There's a few of my kind of just friends in the business world in Manchester who applied. They didn't make the shortlist, but they didn't get the award rather. But the feedback that they got actually has helped them then go on to win other bids and tenders because it's given them a different way of looking at their own business. So even then, it's so unlike any other awards that you get that level of feedback from it. Great.
Thank you very much.
Super.